Hello, KetoCon. I'm very excited to be presenting to you in this new virtual world of post-COVID insanity. And I think now more than ever, I actually changed my presentation a bit so that it revolves around resilience. It's biohacking in the ketogenic diet, but in the lens of resilience, which is something we all need right now. So let me share my deck with you. And I have a lot of things up. And I'll put the view and present. Okay. So becoming more resilient, biohacking in the keto diet. And by the way, I am known now as the ingredientologist. I changed my branding up a little bit. I have been known as the world's greatest formulator. I've formulated over 500 supplements, and I've been doing the keto diet for about 20 years now. And it really helped me overcome a number of autoimmune issues, Hashimoto's, Epstein-Barr virus, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and a brain tumor. And along the way, I've really fought depression, even suicidal thoughts about 3 different times. And obesity, I'm about 100 pounds less than I used to be. I don't even have those pictures because my depression was so severe that I think I destroyed them all. So I've been through it, and along the way, I also became a biochemist and a certified sports nutritionist and a registered dietitian. And I think I'm in a very healthy place now, and I am now known as the ingredientologist because I not only work on supplements, but I am an expert on keto, on paleo, on fasting. I work on food and beverages and household cleaners that are healthier and organic, anti-aging serums, just a number of things. I patent ingredients like T-creen and dynamine and certain exogenous ketones. So a lot of stuff. So jumping into resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. And so think about, like, when we say tough, it's not just being muscular, having a deep voice, or something like that. It's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. So that runner that falls 8 times and gets back up each time, that's what we call resilience. And that's what we need now to be more resilient. We're dealing with COVID-19, the coronavirus, which is a major stress, whether you have it or not. Certainly if you have it, it can be a physiologic stress, but the mental stress and physiologic stress of being indoors and not being able to socialize like you'd like, maybe dealing with your kids all hours of the day, having to cook differently, having to sleep differently, just all the things that are going on, the fear in the social media and on TV. Fear drops your immune system by 50%. So there's just a lot here that I think makes sense to cover, and how the ketogenic diet can be helpful with metabolic flexibility, and biohacking can increase our overall resiliency. So it's about the immune system, our metabolism, and our mindset. They all play into each other. And by the way, if you want this deck, you can hit me up on Instagram at ingredientologist, and I will get it to you, or Shawn at shawnwells.com. So this is one that I really love, and kind of the essence of biohacking. Really want to set this up well so that you understand this, that stress is often not used correctly. When we talk about stress, we just think about work stress. But really, there's physiologic stress, and your body doesn't know the difference between stress like in the gym, with a lot of weight, stress, like when someone cuts you off in traffic, stress with, papers piling up on your desk, stress with your marriage, like your body is just increasing in epinephrine, norepinephrine, the various catecholamines, cortisol. And it really is how you perceive it, one, and that can be positive stress, eustress, or negative stress, distress. And a lot of that has to do with reframing and, again, perception. You can always reframe things. And, these people that are relentlessly positive, and you think, this guy's ridiculous. Like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Or, this thing that happened, like the coronavirus, like actually was a good thing. Like it helped me get closer to my family, and I had time to work out at home, and I saved some time, commuting. That's all reframing, and it can make something that could be a distress a positive stress. And vice versa, there's some people that reframe negatively, more so than they probably should, where that figures, happened again, it's always me, this stuff always comes up. And they expect things to essentially be a negative stress. But another aspect of this is the allostatic load. And essentially it's your bucket, your stress bucket. And we all have different size stress buckets. And it really dictates your overall stress tolerance. And each person has that different threshold at the top of the bucket. And we can make our buckets bigger through hormesis, which is an adaptive response to like a smaller, moderate dose of stress placed on the body. And that's that kind of Goldilocks zone of like, it's not too much or too little, it's just right. So in science, it's actually called the Goldilocks zone, of that just right amount of stress that it helps us adapt hormesis and get a bigger bucket. And that is a eustress if it helps us adapt. But we all can have distress when it's overflowing from the bucket, no matter what kind of stress it is. It could be, red light and a cold shower and going to the gym and working out, things that should be positive stresses. But if our bucket is overflowing from too much going on in our life, then it is then a distress. So you have to think through recovery. And this is where things like heart rate variability and using these fitness trackers and all this can be extremely helpful to understand what the right level of stress is on your body to grow a bigger bucket so that you can deal with more stress and therefore become more resilient. So I am releasing a book later on this year, and it will revolve around getting more energy and how I did that in my life when years ago I had basically no energy and couldn't get out of bed, and how I've created a more resilient life for me. And so I made an acronym out of energy, and I think it's helpful. It's something that you can maybe remember of areas to work on and optimize. Experiment like the N of 1, biohacking, self-experimentation, having an open mind and trying new things. Nutrition, obviously I believe heavily in keto, paleo, fasting, etc. Exercise, routines, like we'll get into that, like around, when you wake up, when you certainly go to bed. Routines can become important. A growth mindset, which goes back to that stoicism. I didn't mention that term, but stoicism is that mindset of dealing, kind of that resilient, the obstacle is the way, that resilient mindset. And I would encourage you guys to read that book by Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way. to learn how to reframe. It's so critical. And then lastly, you and your tribe, your community. And we've learned certainly recently how important community is. And I love all you guys, and I wish I could be seeing you in person. It's always amazing when you're on stage and or you're walking around on the show floor or whatever, to connect with so many amazing like-minded people. The keto community in particular, I've said this before, is one of just incredible connection. And because there's just been so much transformation, I think it's different. I go to all these scientific conferences and even trade and business conferences, and keto in particular, because of the weight loss, the trials through cancer and Parkinson's, and the bullying and the abuse and the things that we've all been through and continue to go through, makes us just so close, and it's such a beautiful community. So I thank you guys. So here, I wanted to show that biohacking is really just getting back to the basics. And even though you're using technology, it's really key to think about, we're just hacking our bodies back into that natural state. We're in a very unnatural state right now. We're surrounded by computers and TVs and Google Home and our phones and Siri and Alexa, and we have shoes on our feet, and we have artificial wood and carpet, and that we're walking around on, and blue lights, and toxins in the air, and all these things, the processed foods. All of this is unnatural. What we think is natural in our environment right now is extremely unnatural for the last million years. And so these things that were so critical into quality of life and living a healthy, optimized life in the past, meditation, prayer, gratitude, journaling, dancing, sunbathing, whole food, plant medicine, these things get us back now. These biohacks get us back to that. So, we are still doing mindful meditation, journaling. We are using technology. Yes, not all technology is bad. It helps us analyze and track so that we can figure out what things are working and what isn't, and how we're different from other people, and therefore make educated guesses on what might work and what might not. And then sleep, like wearing these blue light blocking glasses like Swanwick or True Dark, red light like Juve and the Chili Pad, which helps cool you at night. Pharmaceuticals, it's fairly controversial, but there's data on microdosing LSD helping with brain-derived neurotrophic factor and having a more resilient brain. Neuroplasticity is actually a resilient brain. And other drugs like modafinil, which is a kind of the legendary smart drug, also known as Provigil. Supplementation, certainly. This is a big area for me and what I'm typically known for. Nootropics, things like alpha GPC or CDP choline. Peptides is a fascinating area of research right now. Compounds like BPC 157 are incredible for inflammation and healing. Exogenous ketones, certainly. Exercise, blood flow restriction, and high intensity interval training. I love these hacks. And blood flow restriction is fascinating in terms of recovery and growth. And high intensity interval training is a way you can get like hours worth of a workout in minutes. So definitely these are some great training tools that you can have. And then nutrition, like we talked about, the ketogenic diet, fasting, paleo, all are very helpful. So biohacking rule number 1, self-experimentation. You need to experiment on yourself. Be willing to try these things and see what works well for you, bio-individuality, and know that these things won't work for everyone. And vice versa, that the things that work for everyone won't necessarily work for you. And some of the most important labs that I constantly talk about, because I'm very much a mitochondrial health guy, and I believe the future of medicine lies in mitochondrial health, is inflammation, glycation, and oxidation. These are things that can, when running rampant, can cause damage. They're all fine in a certain level, but when they run rampant and they're chronically unchecked, they can lead to damage throughout the body and aging and disease. And if you track that back, that is because of mitochondrial dysfunction. And then you run into cases of insufficient cellular energy, etc. So inflammation, the lab that you would look at there is C-reactive protein, glycation, hemoglobin A1C, oxidation, oxidized LDL, maybe like $100 in terms of these labs. And if we were looking at them twice a year, the face of medicine would change radically. We would know your biological age as compared to your chronological age. We would know your risk of nearly all disease states. But we don't look at these, and it's sad. And you know how Western medicine works with, you know, basically you have to be already in a disease state and then you're treated. There's very little preventative medicine because there's a lot less money in that, obviously. But I would encourage you to look at these labs yourself. You can do it through like a LabCorp quest, like, you know, with your doctor or without. But it's very easy to look at these labs. And then you have a baseline to know how these things are helping you. Because ultimately, all of these will track back to energy, lower risk of disease, and improved biological age and health. So a tip here, set up an Excel spreadsheet. Obviously, there's probably more complex and expensive ways to do this, but this is just an easy way. Track a variable or biohack, like, for example, doing a cold shower in the morning. You can start with 1 minute and then, you know, move up. And then record your baseline measurements. Like, for example, like it could be this lab, like CRP, which is, again, for inflammation. It could be your mood, your perceived energy throughout the day. You could track all those measurements. And then retest again in 4 weeks, and then you see if that variable worked for you or not, and then to what degree, and then whether you should keep doing it or not. And then, of course, you can move on and add different things. But that leads into my next rule about doing one thing at a time. And that's super important. That is core to the scientific method. Is like, if, for example, you were to do a bunch of those things I was talking about before, you were to do pro-vigil and a cold shower and meditation and you know, blue light blocking glasses and high intensity interval training all at once, kind of like how people do on January 1st for New Year's. They do 15 things. How do you know what's working for you and what's not? You need to write down the top 3 areas in your life that you want to improve, prioritize them, start with that first priority, allocate a period of time for each area, like 4 weeks, and then start working on it. You know, it took years for you to get to this point where maybe you're not in peak health, and it's okay if it takes months to get improvement. I would prefer that over doing 15 things at once and not knowing if some of them are good and some of them are actually counterproductive, and you're trying to make a judgment on all that, and that's just not very scientific. And then this is also critical, and especially I think now when social media is so rampant and we're so affected by it, is focus on you. It's about you. What is your starting point? You know, if you're 150 pounds overweight, you're not worried about six-pack abs. You know, so you have to think about your starting point and what your goals are. And then journal that progress. And then everything's like a small improvement or a setback, but write it down and track it and think through it. And it's focused on you, your bio individuality, you as a person. And so no more comparing on social media, because what works for everyone else probably doesn't work for everyone else and is marketing and is lies, and you don't need to be looking at all that. So focus on you and what works for you, and don't get caught up in the rest. And that's how resilience really does work, is being focused on yourself and improving yourself. So what does a day of biohacking look like? I thought this would be helpful to look at a day like something like that involves biohacking throughout. So here you see basically the morning and day, and I'll go through the evening and night next. So, you know, wake up, and you can download certain apps that have like, and by the way, I use like a white noise app at night. And then when I wake up, you know, a light slowly comes on in the room and the chimes get quicker and louder over time. And so you're not like abruptly woken up. Then I might do some breathing, some box breathing while I'm laying there in bed. Do a 5-minute journal after I get up. I do a couple apps, things like Headspace for meditation, waking up, Elevate, which is brain games. And then I take a quick cold shower. And then I might get out and do some grounding, you know, get outside barefoot for about 20 minutes. I might walk around with my dog. I live right on the lake, so that's always nice to just go sit by the water. And then 7 a.m., I might get that sunlight in or get some blue light if it's, you know, overcast. And I use something called the human charger that you can put in your ears. You actually have photoreceptors in your ears that turns off that release of melatonin from your brain to give you more wakefulness. And then you could also use something like a Philips Go light, I think, or blue. Yeah, I think it's Philips Go light, which you can set on your desk, something like that. Then I do my morning workout, and I do things like I talked about before, like the cool techniques, these intraset stretching, blood flow restriction, Wingate style intervals, drop sets, supersets, you know, that really work that physiologic stress. And then I start working, and I can, you know, knock out some tasks. And then I get my brunch in about 11 a.m. or noon. And then from, you know, noon to 4-ish, I'm doing deep work. So this is where I'm turning everything off. I'm doing no emails, my most important tasks first. And, you know, I take frequent breaks for movement and to take my eyes off a screen, but I'm not taking frequent breaks to look at any social media, to look at any emails, etc. I am doing deep focused work. And for a while, you may not be able to do that for more than an hour and then 2 hours. And it takes time to actually be able to get into a focused state of what I call like hustle and flow. And it's important that we're not, you know, grinding. You know, grinding is breaking yourself down and building up heat, and pieces are breaking off and all this Gary Vee kind of stuff. I don't believe in that. I think, yes, we need to be in a state of hustle sometimes. We need to move quickly and make it happen in that sympathetic nervous system state. And then, but we should be hustling to get to flow states where we're in that parasympathetic state, where we're like everything's coming to you things are happening easily. Things are in alignment with who you are. Remember that unique you? Things are in alignment with what you're supposed to be achieving. And you're in a mentally excited state and things are just clicking. That's the flow state. And hustle and flow makes sense. Hustle and grind is like sympathetic and then hypersympathetic. And that's literally that bucket overflowing. And we shouldn't want grinding, because over time, that is going to lead to inflammation, glycation, oxidation, fatigue, disease. That's not healthy. And you don't win any awards for that. It certainly won't lead to resilience. So afternoon and evening, I'd say like after that deep work, take a chance to do some physical activity, just taking a walk, or, I like to play some volleyball sometimes in the evening, things like that, sauna. 6 p.m. I do the dinner, which is another keto meal, mindful eating. Then, think about starting to turn it down like around 7 p.m., using something like a Juve light for the red light, being mindful of how much blue light you're receiving at that time, because you want to start turning on melatonin to start getting relaxed / sleepy. Now would be a good time to do a gratitude journal. And then think about your sleep environment, which is sometimes it's called a sleep fortress. I'm calling it a biohacked bedroom here, but red light only. If you have to get up and go to the bathroom, they have like these red light flashlights. Keeping the temperature cool, like that chili pad, but also in the room that you have blackout or blockout blinds. The Manta mask is one that I like for a sleep mask. That's probably my favorite one. Keeping your phone and Wi-Fi off. And, make sure that you finish up eating a couple hours before bed. And again, obviously limit that screen time before bed. Certainly don't be looking at your phone in a dark room, in your bed. It's just not healthy in terms of, one, unwinding. Some of the stuff you're looking at might be stressing you, whether it's work or whether it's social media or, a video that's got, explosions in it or whatever. It's just not healthy to be doing that at night. But also, again, that blue light exposure. And then it's really helpful to do the sleep tracking to see the quality of sleep that you're getting. And then you can use that as another metric to show how all these biohacks may be helping you or not helping you in terms of sleep quality. The healthier and more energetic you feel throughout the day should be leading to healthier, more quality sleep as well for recovery. And recovery is going to be critical for resilience. So biohacktivism is a term that I created, and it's really a mashup of two mashup words. And so there's biohacking, which is hacking your biology, and there's hacktivism, which is hacking for activist reasons, hacking for the social good, if you will, like, Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, Anonymous, these groups, whether you like them politically or not, their ideals are that they're supposedly helping people to live a better life, or at least be more aware of the truth. And so this idea of biohacktivism is biohacking for the greater good. Typically, biohacking is the N of one, quantified self. All I care about is me. Will I live longer? Will I be more powerful and productive? And I think we're seeing it evolve into a happier life means a life with a community. And I like to think about the Maslow's pyramid. At the top, we've always talked about self-actualization, like where you figure out like your true purpose, and that's certainly critical. But I think above the pyramid, maybe the zenith of the pyramid would be helping others self-actualize. And that's where we get the greatest benefit in our life, when we help others become who they are supposed to be. And when we're more heads up, when we're more energized and then optimized, then we can listen better, we can empathize better, we can connect better with the people around us. We're heads up, we're seeing them. And when you're tired, you're just surviving, you're not thriving, and you're not seeing those people around you, you're not connecting with those people around you, you're not making those great connections and having your network thrive. Like they talk about, like, you know, it's more about your network than your net worth. So those are just some things that, putting this all into perspective, that biohacking actually can be something truly positive. And some people like to call it health optimization now. But certainly, I think these things can lead to more resilience in us and the people we care about around us. So now getting to the ketogenic diet. It is KetoCon after all. So one of the things I love about keto is, you know, I used to do it very strict. Like I said, I've been doing it for about 20 years, and I've gotten to a point where I wanted to maintain this for the rest of my life. And for me, that meant doing cyclical and targeted ketogenic diets after I'd basically maintained my goals for quite some time. And this fit well with me, that I could still have a Saturday night out on the town and do whatever, or, you know, go to a wedding and have some cake, or when I play volleyball, I might have, you know, some Gatorade and some candy or something. But, you know, it's about what works for you. And this is about, for me, metabolic flexibility. And I like being able to tap into both fuels, both glucose and ketones. And I think we used to be able to easily do that. We used to be very flexible. You know, more than 100 years ago, and thousands of years ago, certainly, when we had maybe winters, we would only have animals. We would have high fiber foods, high resistant starch foods. We would be working or moving or traveling all day long, expending lots of calories. We might have difficulty finding food, therefore that equals fasting / starving. And so we would have been tapping into ketones probably half the time. So to me, keto isn't a trend, it is actually a fuel that we're meant to use, and a fuel that we've now become almost resistant to, because we're eating high glycemic carbohydrate every couple of hours and we're sedentary. And that's the problem. So, and I think now more than ever, this is actually helpful because if you can burn fat, you know, you can fast. And if you can fast, you can save money. And if you can save money, you'll have less stress. And if you have less stress, you can be more resilient. So, you know, those are just some ideas that resilience means flexibility. I mean, they're almost synonymous, that you can deal with, you can switch back and forth in different scenarios. And so I love the idea of keto helping with our flexibility or resilience. And so since I'm a supplement guy, I wanted to get into what supplements I take. Have MCT oil. My favorite is C8, caproic acid. It's much more ketogenic. Exogenous ketones. My sodium BHB is probably my favorite of all the salts in terms of efficacy. And then look for that active isomer. It's either R or D BHB. Taking electrolytes. You know, you can take these products, but actually, I believe just getting enough salt, like a product like Real Salt, and your diet is probably more than enough. And then I like taking magnesium in the evening. Apple cider vinegar can help be ketogenic and also help with digestion. Some other considerations here that you might want to do with exercise, especially if you're on a strict ketogenic diet and you're dealing with gluconeogenesis with, you know, in protein levels, and you're kind of lowering your protein levels. It would be good to add in BCAAs or essential amino acids. Again, magnesium at night for sleep. L-theanine helps you relax. Melatonin, like we talked about, your brain releases this to help with kind of that relaxed, deeper state before sleep. Detoxification, things like curcumin, N-acetylcysteine, which is a precursor to glutathione, and then liposomal glutathione is the only form of glutathione I would take. And then fasting. Obviously, that's an incredible tool. So supplements for a more resilient immune system, these are ones that I take often and have leaned on more heavily during this time, especially when the news first came out. And, you know, we were all stressed about when is this going to end? Do we all have it, etc. So vitamin C in its buffered or liposomal form are my favorites. IV vitamin C, you can potentially do if you're fighting the infection. They found it to be very efficacious in China. There's a number of studies going on that. And that would be a larger dose, like 25 to 30 grams. If you're actually fighting an infection, you might do like around 5 grams if you're not. Vitamin D3, again, we're hearing about that being effective with coronavirus and other viruses. Obviously, getting sunlight is ideal. But taking a supplement can be helpful as well, 2,000 to 10,000 IUs a day. I think this depends on your biology and depends on your sunlight exposure. Also taking K2 with that is helpful. Mushrooms, I think, are absolutely exploding in terms of their effect on the immune system. AHCC is probably the most effective thing I've found, that monolaurin, in terms of helping my immune system when I'm crashing, and I've dealt with that for years. And L-ergothioneine seems to be the amino acid that really is critical in a lot of the efficacy of these mushrooms. Zinc, again, another one we're hearing about. And, you know, I would typically take that 10 to 15 milligrams a day, but you can ramp that up when you're sick or you're crashing or, you know, you're not feeling as well, but, you know, only for a short window because you run into other mineral deficiencies. Monolaurin, like I talked about, lauric acid, C12, comes from coconut oil. You get them in like little beadlets. They're pretty much flavorless and really profound effect. They're antiviral and antimicrobial, super effective. Lysine, cheap amino acid. It's a ketogenic amino acid along with leucine, and really helps me again when I feel myself crashing. I hit a decent dose of lysine and I tend to bounce back. Oregano oil, especially the P73 standardized, it tastes very potent, but works really well. N-acetylcysteine, we talked about glutathione, butyrate, which is a short chain fatty acid that's really important to gut health. Cat's claw, epicor. You can find out more about these on my site, shawnwells.com, or at Ingredientologist on my Instagram. And along with that, I really do appreciate you guys listening to all of this, and I have tons more information on my social media. My Instagram like has all these swipeable content, you know, with things like this, the top 10 food sources of zinc. I talk about ketones and sometimes I have funny memes, but I also have these guides, as you can see here, like this fasting guide on my website. I have guides on keto, on fasting, on women and fasting in particular, a guide on zinc, a guide on vitamin D3, guide on mushrooms, vitamin C. There's literally, I think, about 20 guides up there right now with more coming, like one a week essentially. And I cover a different topic every week on my social media, and a new guide goes up every week to match it. So I would love if you guys, you know, want a copy of this or have any questions, certainly any questions of how I got through all the difficulties I've been through. I would love to share that with you. I'm here for you. And that's my ultimate goal, is to help you reach the top of your pyramid. So I thank you so much. And hopefully you're ready now to become a biohacktivist and really band together, and we all can help each other through this really difficult time. And I love you guys so much. I love KetoCon. And I would also say thank you to Robin Switzer, who is the most amazing human being in the history of human beings. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.